The text from my father arrived in the blue-hour gloom, that strange, silent time when night hasn't yet surrendered to day. The screen's glow was a cold planet in the dark of my Colorado bedroom. No dead beats this year, only your sister and her family. The message was an absence. A door clicked shut in 7 words. It wasn't an argument, it was a decree. I held the phone, feeling the familiar hollow ache expand beneath my ribs. This was the 3rd Christmas in a row. The dead beat label had started as a muttered joke about my fledgling company, Shield Path, then calcified into my official title, Sylvia the Deadbeat. I typed my reply with steady fingers. Got it. Enjoy yourselves. Polite enough to sound unfazed, honest enough to sting later if they were capable of being stung. The silence that followed was a heavy, familiar thing. A clean, practiced, same pattern, different year. Marcy got the stage. I got the static. Outside my wall of windows, the first snow of deep December slid down the valley in slow, silent waves. Inside, my coffee steamed, then cooled, forgotten beside a stack of mortgage papers. The papers were a formality now. I was $8 million worth of dead beat, the owner of this mountainside lodge, of the quiet, of my own life. This year, I wasn't waiting for an invitation. They closed the door. I built the house. My education in invisibility began early. I was a child who spoke in schematics and quiet focus, while my sister, Marcy, performed in arias and applause. I was 13 when I built my first robot in our cluttered garage. A simple thing of spare parts, circuit boards, and stubborn hope. It could lift wooden blocks and follow basic voice commands. For weeks, the garage was my cathedral. When it finally worked, a jittery, beautiful walk across the workbench, I burst into the house, grease smeared on my cheek, triumph in my throat. Dad didn't look up from his newspaper. The sports section rustled. "That's nice," he said, the words landing like dust. "Your sister's solo went great last night. Pitch perfect," the director said. Mom, stirring something at the stove, gasped as if he'd announced a peace treaty. My certificate from the science fair, creased from my tight grip, eventually vanished under a pile of unpaid bills on the counter. A year later, I built a drone from scavenged parts. It hovered in the backyard for a glorious, shaky 10 seconds before landing cleanly at my feet. Mom watched from the kitchen window, a dish towel in her hands. "Neat, honey," she called, her voice thin. "Did you see Marcy's debate schedule? They're flying to nationals, can you imagine?" At 17, the quiet neglect curdled into something sharper. Marcy, storming into my room to borrow something she'd never return, tripped over a tangle of project cables. She didn't stumble. She fell dramatically, a starlet in a family drama. Her scream brought my father thundering down the hall. "What is this mess?" he roared, his face inches from mine. He smelled like aftershave and office fatigue. "You could have killed her, Sylvia." The punishment was swift and total. My tools confiscated, my allowance suspended, my very presence deemed a hazardous clutter. My voice, already soft, retreated entirely. It was easier to be silent than to be blamed. Well, by the time Caltech's acceptance letter arrived, I'd stopped expecting fairness. "That's far," my father said, frowning at the envelope from Pasadena. "A long way from home." Mom offered a vague, "We'll visit when things calm down." They never did. Marcy's college orientation in-state was a weekend-long celebration. Mine was a Greyhound bus ticket I bought myself. Marcy's wedding was a masterclass in my role. 300 guests, a string quartet, chandeliers dripping like frozen stars. I was not in the bridal party. I was handed a flashlight by my father an hour before the ceremony. "You're good with wires," he said, not meeting my eyes. "The lighting guy is swamped. Help him out." I spent the night crawling under skirted tables, checking extension cords, while above me they smiled for photos that proclaimed, "Family is everything." My back ached from concrete. My heart ached from a colder truth. The Thanksgiving. I couldn't afford the flight home. Dad's relief was audible over the phone. "Don't worry about it, Sil. It's a hectic year." I stayed in my dorm, eating vending machine noodles, and scrolled through their festive online album. There was the table, groaning with food. There were their faces, wreathed in smiles. My chair wasn't there. It had never been there. That was the year the final veil lifted. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't overlooked. I was optional. Silence, I learned, has rules. Speak less. Work quietly. Ask for nothing. Expect nothing. They weren't forgetting me. They were practicing it. And silence, like any debt, accrues a bitter, compounding interest. After college, I took a job at a small security firm in a downtown that smelled of bus exhaust and stale ambition. For 12 hours a day, I fixed other people's critical mistakes in lines of code. When a big client was saved from a catastrophic breach, my manager took the credit at the company meeting. I kept my job and I kept my silence. The interest on that debt grew. In 2016, I finally defaulted. I quit. I founded Centria from a studio apartment that doubled as a server room. One desk, one laptop, a coffee machine that sputtered like a sick engine. I coded through dawns and midnights, meeting clients in coffee shops where my latte bought me 4 hours of table space. It worked. For a while. Then a client, a florist with a website I'd rebuilt, claimed my update had erased her entire inventory. She stopped paying. Her lawyer threatened to sue. The floor vanished beneath me. Terrified, I did the unthinkable. I called my parents. The static on the line felt heavier than silence. "You chose this risky path," my father said, his voice a flat verdict. "You have to live with the consequences." My mother's sigh was a world-weary thing. "It's a shame. Marcy's firm just landed a huge account. They're talking expansion." As a last, desperate gambit, I called Marcy. Her laughter was short, sharp. "Already getting sued? That was fast." The click in my ear was the sound of a final bridge burning. I sat in the dark apartment, surrounded by the corpses of printed contracts, the glow of error messages my only company. I was wrecked. Then my phone buzzed. A different rhythm. Uncle Ray. My father's younger brother, a bear of a man who ran an auto shop and spoke in grunts and profound truths. "You answer like someone died," he growled. "What's wrong, kid?" The story tumbled out of me. The code, the client, the lawsuit, the calls home. He listened without interruption. When I finished, hollowed out, he was quiet for a long moment. "All right," he said finally. "So you're not finished. You're just early." The next morning, a wire transfer from Ray hit my account, enough to keep the landlord at bay. An hour later, he texted a name and number. "Call her. She's a lawyer. She's mean. She's good." The case settled quietly, out of court, for a pittance. When I tried to thank Ray, stammering over the phone, he cut me off. "Don't. Now tear it down and rebuild it right this time." 6 months later, I formally shut Centria down. Ray, in his cryptic way, introduced me to people. A guy who knows a guy. Clients who needed discreet, solid work. I took tiny jobs, fixing the booking system for a local library, securing the database for a family-run pharmacy. I finished every single one ahead of schedule. I built nothing but a reputation for being reliable and quiet. By 2020, I had saved enough to try again. This time, no grand names. I called it Shield Path. No partners, no noise, just me, a clean system that worked. I rented a drafty loft above Ray's auto shop. The floor creaked a symphony of complaints. The heater rattled like a maraca. I didn't care. Every morning began with cold coffee and broken code. Every night ended with something fixed. Then came the fire. It was a Thursday. A short circuit, ancient wiring in the wall behind my server rack sparked. I was downstairs talking to Ray about a carburetor. We smelled it before we saw it. Acrid, wrong. We took the stairs 2 at a time. Smoke, thick and greedy, boiled under the door. "No!" The word was torn from me. Ray held me back, then shoved a rag in my hand. "Wet this! Cover your face!" He kicked the door in. The heat was a physical wall. I saw the orange bloom against the far wall, licking at my drives, my history, my future. Logic shut down. Instinct took over. I plunged into the smoke, grabbing what I could, the primary server hot to the touch and a lockbox of backup drives. A falling beam grazed my wrist, a searing kiss. My lungs screamed. The insurance adjuster later was apologetic but firm. Faulty building wiring, pre-existing, no payout. I stood in the charred, water-stained ruins, the smell of defeat in my nose. My wrist was bandaged. My dream was ashes. Ray found me there, staring at a melted keyboard. He didn't offer platitudes. He made a call. Got a guy. Lives out past the reservoir. A hermit with a gift for fried electronics. The man's name was Leo. He worked in a shed that smelled of ozone and solar. For 5 days, I waited. On the 6th, he handed me a drive. Half of it, he grunted. The rest is ghost stories. The other half, I rebuilt from memory, line by line, through sleepless nights where the code was seared behind my eyelids. It was better the second time. Cleaner, stronger. Anger and loss are powerful refineries. 3 months later, Shield Path 2.0 was not just running, it was singing. I sent demos to small, pragmatic clients, a community hospital chain, a regional grocery retailer. They didn't need Flash, they needed a fortress. The hospital signed a pilot. The grocer followed a week later. Proof. It was a quiet, a solid thing, but it was finally proof. Proof stacks higher than any empty praise. I hired one assistant, a sharp-eyed coder named Eli, then another, a project manager named Anya. We moved from the grieving loft to a small, clean office with a view of real mountains. The silence there was different. It was the sound of concentration, of respect, of work being done. The offer came on a Tuesday, the kind of cloudy, unremarkable day where life changes. The email was from a tech conglomerate known for swallowing small, innovative firms. The subject line was simple: acquisition interest, Shield Path. The number, $50 million, all cash, clean terms. I felt nothing at first. Then a profound, ringing stillness. I forwarded it to my lawyer, a fierce woman named Marta, who had taken me on after the florist debacle. She called within the hour. "It's real," she said, her voice like smoothed gravel. "The terms are aggressive but standard. We can negotiate protections for your team, for the product, a transition timeline." I read the draft letter of intent twice, sitting in my quiet office. Then I called Ray. "You're going to laugh," I said, my voice strangely steady. "Try me. We have a buyer, a big one." A long whistle, then a deeper silence. 50? Yeah. Huh. I could almost see him rubbing his jaw, staring at a half-built engine. "Don't get fancy. Protect your people. Get the money where it can't be touched. Then get back to work." The due diligence process was a months-long dissection. Lawyers poked and prodded. Accountants sifted through every digital receipt. We negotiated. My team got retention bonuses. The core product would remain intact for 2 years. The name could change, but the code would stay pure. We signed in a glass-walled conference room high over the city. The signing ceremony was silent, just the scratch of pens and the quiet clicks of the photographer hired by the acquirer. When the final signature was laid down, a strange stillness held the room. Then the lead lawyer from the other side stood and offered his hand. "Congratulations, Ms. Vance. It's a remarkable thing you built." The wire hit my account the next morning. The first thing I did was wire significant, life-changing bonuses to Eli, Anya, and the 3 other early hires. The second was to set up a trust. I called Ray and asked him to meet me at the auto shop. I handed him a binder. "It's a partnership share, 15%, silent but real." He flipped through the pages, his grease-stained fingers careful on the pristine paper. He looked at me, his eyes bright. "This is too much, kid." "It's exactly right," I said. "Partners, from the worst day forward." He cleared his throat, looked away at a '67 Mustang on the lift, and nodded once. He said nothing. He didn't need to. I didn't buy sports cars or jeweled watches. I bought the most precious commodities I knew: silence, security, and room to think. I found the lodge in Colorado through a discreet broker. Stone and timber perched on the side of a valley, with a fortified basement, backup generators, a storm pantry, and a satellite internet rig. It was a retreat and a redoubt. I hired a caretaker, Ella, a former military logistician who ran the household with the precision of a field campaign. Every morning, I stood by the massive living room window with a mug of coffee, watching the weather write its story on the valley. Every night, I checked the security system logs, the perimeter alarms, the supply inventories. The quiet was no longer empty. It was full. It was mine. Then December circled back, as it always did, bringing the familiar chill. The text from my father appeared like a ghost from a past life. No dead beats this year, only your sister and her family. I read it twice. I felt the old trigger, the twinge of the wound, but beneath it was something new, solid bedrock. My hands didn't shake. I put the phone down and finished my coffee. I called Ray first. "Christmas, here, bring everyone, the whole noisy crew." His answer was immediate. "We'll be there." I called Ela. "We're having guests, a lot of them." "For the holidays." She didn't blink. "List, dates, dietary, I'll handle it." I sent out a single, simple email to a curated list. Cousins I actually liked, old friends who had checked in during the hard times, neighbors from childhood who had shown kindness, a few former engineers I respected. "Spending the holidays at the lodge in Colorado. There's room at the table if you'd like to join us. No gifts, just presents. Sylvia." The replies didn't trickle in. They flooded. Yeses. Enthusiastic yeses. My cousin Mark. "Wouldn't miss it." Aunt Ruth from my mother's side, the black sheep of that family. "I'll bring my famous and legally questionable eggnog." Grandpa, my father's father, texted a single, perfect snowflake emoji. Ella became a maestro of logistics. Flights were booked, shuttles arranged, rooms assigned, the lodge transformed. On fresh greens appeared. The pantries overflowed. The 3 fireplaces were serviced and stacked with wood. A piano tuner came, did his work, and left a receipt on the grand piano's lid. They arrived in waves, under a sky heavy with promised snow. Cars and SUVs crunched up the gravel drive, luggage piled by the door. Boots, mittens, and scarves created a chaotic, happy mosaic in the mudroom. Laughter, real and unforced, echoed off the beams. Someone, it was Aunt Ruth, opened the piano and began to play a soft, jazzy carol. Kids exploded upstairs to test every bedroom and discover every hidden nook. Photos, unposed and joyful, appeared online naturally. "Christmas at Sylvia's Lodge," someone captioned. The pictures showed firelight on faces, board game battles, the stunning valley vista through the giant windows. They were tagged, shared, reshared. They rippled out through the digital world, reaching church directories, neighborhood groups, and the vast, tangled network of the family tree. Within an hour, my phone began to vibrate with texts from peripheral relatives. "Where is this? Looks amazing." The calls to my parents' house, I learned later, started soon after. My phone buzzed me awake before sunrise on the 26th. My father's name, again and again. I let it ring. On the 3rd call, I answered, my voice calm with sleep. "Morning. You humiliated us." His voice was a crack of thunder, devoid of any holiday spirit. No greeting, no inquiry, just raw, sputtering offense. I waited. "You invited everyone, our family, our friends, to your show house, without us. How could you?" I took a slow breath. The valley outside was a bowl of mist. "I invited the people who show up, Dad. You made your choice clear." My mother's voice, tense and shrill, cut in from an extension. "Do you have any idea how this looks? Sylvia, the photos are everywhere. You've embarrassed this family." "That's called attendance," I said, my tone even. "You might try it sometime." A beat of furious silence. Then the question, the real one, dropped low and venomous. "How did you even afford all that? That lodge? Flying people out? You remember Shield Path? My computer thing? What about it?" "I sold it." A pause. I could hear his mind racing, recalculating. "For how much?" 50 million. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It wasn't dismissive or angry. It was the silence of a universe recalibrating. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, stripped of its bluster, revealing something grasping and thin beneath. Your mother and we supported you. Through college. You wouldn't be where you are without that foundation. Mom jumped in, her tone shifting to wounded righteousness. We're your family, Sylvia. We deserve to share in your good fortune. A family share is only right. Something in me, a last thin thread, snapped cleanly. Supported me? The words were quiet, lethal. You ignored me. You sidelined me. You called me a deadbeat and cut me out of holidays. That isn't a contract, it's a memory, and it doesn't pay dividends. My grandfather, who had been sitting at the kitchen island listening with a deepening frown, set down his coffee mug. The sound was a period. Put it on speaker, he said, his voice a low rumble. I did. Morning, Jerry, Grandpa boomed into the phone. Oh, my father stammered. Dad? You're there? Course I am, where you should be. Listen to me. You and Carol have got some damn nerve. My mother tried. Now, Dad. Don't dad me, Carol. You ignored this girl for years, treated her ambition like a nuisance, praised the one who performed for you and forgot the one who built things. And now, the minute you see a number with commas in it, your hands are out. You should be ashamed. You are ashamed. That's why you're yelling. The silence from their end was complete. A void. Then a muffled sound, a muttered, "We'll talk about this later." And the line went dead. Grandpa picked up his mug, took a long sip. A slow smile spread across his face. Better than caffeine. Better than closure, I said, and I meant it. Closure was a myth. Peace was a structure you built yourself, with clear blueprints. I opened a new note on my phone. I wasn't writing a letter to them. I was writing a constitution for myself. The rules. No money, gifts, loans, or access granted under any pressure, guilt, or family duty. No visits without explicit advance invitation and a welcome from me. No demands dressed as advice, tradition, or concern. No public or private shaming used to manipulate my decisions. Respect first, demonstrated consistently over a long period of time, is the only currency for renewed connection. Apologies, if they come, must be in writing, specific, unprompted by crisis or opportunity. Therapy, individually and together, is the non-negotiable prerequisite for any discussion of real repair. Everything else is distance and quiet. Grandpa read over my shoulder. He nodded once. Good, solid. Keep 'em simple, keep 'em visible. I saved the note. I locked my phone. Keys aren't vows. My consent is. Later that day, as snow fell in fat, steady flakes, another message came. Not from my father. From Marcy. Sylvia. I saw the pictures. I read what Grandpa said to Mom and Dad. I've been thinking for a long time, but I was too cowardly to say it. I'm sorry. I was jealous of you. Your mind, your quiet. That you didn't need their applause to breathe. I followed their script because it was easy, and I let them make you the villain in my story too. I see it now. It was wrong. I am so sorry. I read it 3 times. I felt a thaw, a crack in a deep glacier. But I did not reply. Not yet. Some truths need to settle. Apologies take time, not speed. Trust is rebuilt in actions, not words. The day unspooled gently. There was a chaotic sledding expedition. Ray and Aunt Ruth bickered over pie crust recipes. Eli and Anya, who had flown in, taught the kids how to code a simple Starfield animation on an old laptop. The extra place setting I'd instinctively put out last night remained empty. I didn't remove it. I just didn't fill it. Before dinner, as the golden hour lit the valley on fire, I opened the rules again. They weren't a weapon. They were a boundary, clear and strong, a moat, not a wall. If my parents ever wanted to cross it, they would know exactly how. The drawbridge was mine to lower. That night, as a soft quiet settled over the full house, I walked to the great window. The snow had stopped. A million stars dusted the black velvet sky, reflected in the untouched white below. I could hear the faint murmur of conversation. Was the clink of a dish being washed, the contented sigh of the house settling? I was not the dead beat. I was the foundation. I was not the static. I was the signal. They hadn't invited me back. But I had finally, irrevocably arrived.